1551 for this listener. Do you have a friend where the conversation is always about them and you come away from every conversation with them absolutely drained? Well, they might tell you about their bad job or the difficult family or the poor relationship choices, but they don't want to hear anything about you or your life. Well, that person might be what's called an emotional vampire. Now, to tell us how to recognise an emotional vampire and how to escape from them, we're joined by chartered behavioural psychologist at changeable.ie. It's Padraig Walsh. Padraig, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much, Cormac.
Now, describe what is an emotional vampire?
It's as you described, Cormac. If you've ever been around somebody who you're with them and you feel like your energy is just being sucked away, or there's a constant need for attention, validation, like they have loads to get off their chest, but they rarely show a positive interest in anything you're doing. You know, they're really negative. You're talking about that emotional vampire-like behaviour. I think emotional vampire is an American term, but I think a few people in Ireland have heard them called Craic Vaccums. But they don't share an interest in what you're doing, but they have lots to talk about themselves.
And is it just their character? Is it the way they and their families have been for generations? Or is it learned behaviour that you can unlearn?
Like everything in psychology, it's a combination of a lot of these things. So your relationship with the person might really have started off with you being a very good listener or somebody who gave a lot of time and attention to them. For somebody who might be... Now, one of the important things for somebody who's showing these signs is this is different to somebody who might be, need a listening ear. Like there is when somebody shares a problem with you and you are listening to them and giving them your time, there is a term called emotional labor, where it's tiring. If you're trying to help somebody and you're trying to listen to them, like from a psychologist to a teacher to a nurse to a member of bar staff or a hairdresser, all of these jobs involve emotional labor. So if somebody's sharing with you, you're going to feel tired. That doesn't make them an emotional vampire. But if you're seeing this being something chronic, that every single time you meet with them, you're feeling exhausted afterwards, they have no interest in what you're doing, and it is almost like a behavioural pattern. It can come from their existing learning history with their own family. It might be how they associate you. They go, well, actually, you're a very good listener, and I know that I can just dump on you and walk away feeling a little bit better. But they never take into consideration how that might make you feel. So that's where you're starting to see them.
So one of the things that you might feel, though, is a sense of responsibility, because you might feel like you're the only person this person can talk to. So you can't shut them out or shut them down because they need you.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, Sarah. Like, if you take the serenity prayer and you say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That might be the person, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. One of the important things for any of us is having set boundaries for ourselves. So if this is somebody who's really important in our life, a member of our close family or a really close friend, and they're an emotional vampire, we need to think about how we can protect ourselves, because this is probably a relationship that we need to maintain. However, there are also people who enter our lives at different stages that we don't necessarily have that same growth or that same need to have them in our lives. And then we really need to think, well, actually, is this a relationship that I value? Is this that I'm getting anything from, or is this actually damaging? And do I need to have a serious conversation with them or with myself around setting boundaries?
Okay, so say it's the second and it's a relationship you can afford to lose, but you'd like to restructure if possible. Do you have the conversation, or do you just sort of phase them out a little bit? I'm not available for drinks.
Yeah, sometimes natural attrition occurs, like there's the theory of natural selection doesn't just extend to species, it can also extend to relationships. And those that aren't working for you, it's a personal choice. You can have the conversation, but if you don't necessarily value it, or it's not something that is crucial within your life, there may just be natural attrition, like you said, Sarah.
Can I ask you this, right? From the emotional vampire's point of view, if they're always talking about their bad job or difficult family or whatever, is that a mental health red flag, do you think?
I'm like I said earlier on, I'm wary of pathologizing this, and you don't want to feel a responsibility for somebody. There may well be in certain cases, but it differs from to person, and I don't think as a listener, as a friend, that you need to take those elements of responsibility on, unless it's somebody that you're very, very close to and you've noticed a specific change
Oh no!
That might signal.
Oh, you're back. The line dropped there, right? The line dropped, which I'm delighted about, because let's say you go the other route. I had this question for you, right? You didn't cause the natural attrition, or you didn't decide to set boundaries. You actually wanted to correct the person's worldview. Can you do that? Can you say, look, sit them down. You are what's called an emotional vampire, and I want to fix you, and here's what you should do.
Ooh, that's a very, very difficult question, Corey. If you had the answer to that, you would solve so much of the polarization that's happening in the world right now.
I think people love, don't they, Padraig, when you tell them, I want to fix you.
Yeah.
That's people's favourite thing to hear. And they'll always listen as well when you come at them like that.
Okay, well, perhaps I was a little bit cumbersome there, but you know what I'm getting at, Padraig.
I do. I wouldn't advise it, Cormac. It wouldn't be my go-to thing on this, you know. I probably would keep a few more tools in my toolbox that I would use in that regard. Because, you know, this is where what I was saying on the line there before it broke up, is that if this is somebody that you're close to and you're noticing a change in them, that they are becoming much more negative, or they're complaining about things, then we should start to, you know, maybe have a question or have a conversation with them. But if this is something that you've noticed from the very, very start, and there's no sign of it changing, and that isn't a central relationship in your life, you know.
Okay. I want to ask you finally then, if it is a very important relationship to you, so this is something you need to find a way to work on, how apart from saying I need to fix you and this is how I'm going to do it, what sort of language can you use to have that conversation?
Are you choosing to have the conversation?
Yes, if you decide you have to have or maybe you don't. Maybe there's a way around it. Nobody wants to have that conversation.
No, and perhaps you do have the conversation, but I suppose the first thing is, if this is a relationship that you're going to stay in, it falls under the category of accepting the things that I cannot change. And if this is something that is there from, you know, an established relationship, your boundaries and your own minding yourself becomes critically important. You might want to have that conversation with somebody and subtly suggesting, look, there are times where I want to talk about what's important to me, you know, and you point it out to them, and I would say, be very specific about the behaviors that you're seeing. You're not listening to me, or you're not giving me space to talk, or you're always, rather than saying you are an emotional vampire and categorizing it that way.
You've just said what I said, really, in terms of fixing the person, but you've said it in a better way. So mental note to myself, listen to Padraig Walsh. Okay, Padraig, fantastic advice. Thank you so much indeed. Chartered behavioural psychologist at changeable, I think, .ie. Padraig Walsh, míle buíochas.